Welcome back for another deep dive. We love to look at higher education systems around the world, and today, we're headed to Poland.
Ooh, Poland.
You're interested in how higher education governance reform is impacting universities there.
Yeah, fascinating stuff.
We've got this report from a Polish university that'll give us a really interesting perspective, specifically from rectors.
That's key, right? Getting that insider view from the people actually leading these institutions.
Exactly. So let's set the scene first. Historically, Poland's higher education system has been all about self-governance.
Yeah, they've had this strong tradition of professors holding a lot of influence.
Almost like an academic democracy.
Right. It's rooted in that humblation model of higher education,
Makes sense.
where professors had a lot of autonomy and influence over university affairs.
So professors had a huge say in how universities were run, but then in 2018, a new law came along and really shook things up.
Yes. Constitution for Science, or Law 2.0, as it's often called.
And that aimed to modernize university governance.
Exactly. Give more power to the rectors. Those are the heads of the universities.
Right.
And it introduced something totally new. University councils
Okay.
with external members.
Right, so people from outside academia.
Yep, coming from outside the academic world.
Wow, that's a big change.
Huge shift. Because before, it was pretty closed off.
Very professor-centric.
Exactly. So this was like opening the doors, inviting in perspectives from all sorts of different areas.
So we're talking business leaders, community leaders, all sorts of folks.
Exactly.
Now, this report we're looking at focused on how those reforms were received by the rectors themselves.
They surveyed 60 rectors across Poland
Out of
123 public universities.
Okay, so a pretty decent sample size.
Yeah, definitely gives us a good representation of how rectors are feeling about these changes.
Now, we could just say, oh, the rectors felt their roles were strengthened.
Which seems kind of obvious.
Right, more decision-making power obviously means a stronger role, but I think it's more interesting to think about what that actually means in practice.
Absolutely. Like, did it lead to faster decision-making, more efficient management? Did it create any friction with other university bodies like the Senate, which traditionally held a lot of influence?
Yeah, that's a good point. Because, the Senate was a pretty powerful body before these reforms.
Right, and that's exactly what the report dives into.
So what did they find?
Well, it seems like a mixed bag.
Really?
Yeah, some rectors felt that their authority was increased, but it also led to some tension.
Especially with the Senate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Some felt like the Senate's role was diminished.
Creating sort of a power struggle.
Right. While others felt like the Senate's role stayed pretty much the same.
So it really depended on the specific university and the personalities involved.
Seems that way. It's like this ongoing negotiation of power as universities adjust to these new governance structures.
It'll be interesting to see how that plays out over time.
Definitely something to keep an eye on.
Now let's talk about those external members on the university councils.
Right. The outsider.
There was a lot of talk about them potentially meddling in university affairs.
A lot of concern about that.
Yeah. Did those fears actually materialize?
Well, according to the rectors, not so much.
Really?
Yeah, it seems like the councils, and especially those external members, didn't cause as much controversy as some folks anticipated.
So those initial fears were maybe a bit overblown.
Maybe. At least from the rector's perspective.
Interesting.
It's not just about having them there, though.
Right.
It's about their roles, their expertise, and what they can actually contribute to the university.
So what did the rectors want from these external members?
Well, that's where it gets interesting. The report highlights that rectors had different expectations, and these often aligned with the type of university they represented.
Oh, okay. So like different types of universities were looking for different things.
Exactly.
Well, let's break down those different types then.
Okay, so the report focuses on three main types.
Okay.
You've got your traditional academic universities, your specialized universities, focusing on specific fields like tech or medicine.
Makes sense.
And then you have vocational universities, or PUZs as they're called in Poland.
PUZs.
Which are very much tied to the needs of their local community.
So each of these types comes with its own history, its own culture, its own set of priorities.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that influenced how they viewed these governance changes, especially those external council members.
So it's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Not at all. It's all about context.
All right, well, let's dive into each type then and see what they were looking for in those external council members.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Let's start with those PUZs, the vocational universities.
Okay.
Remember how we talked about them wanting external members who could connect them with the local community?
Right, making sure the university is actually meeting the needs of the region.
Exactly. Well, the report quotes a rector from one of these PUZs
Oh, cool.
who really emphasizes that need for practical experience.
Yeah.
Specifically, folks who understand the regional labor market.
So they can tailor the university's program.
Yeah, make sure those students have the skills local employers are actually looking for.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
It's not just about theoretical knowledge.
Right.
It's about really understanding what's happening on the ground.
Okay, so they need people who can bridge that gap between the university and the real world.
Exactly. And this practicality extends to other areas, too.
Like?
Another rector from a PUZ talked about wanting external members who can help the university attract funding and manage its finances effectively.
So people with business savvy?
Yeah, like experience in business development, fundraising, financial management.
Almost like they're running a business.
Well, in a way they are.
Yeah.
These PUZs often play a big role in driving local economic development.
Makes sense, they need to be financially stable.
Exactly. And responsive to the needs of the region.
Okay, so PUZs are all about practicality and connecting with the community.
That's a good summary. Now let's switch gears to traditional academic universities.
All right, so what are they looking for?
Well, the report quotes a rector who emphasizes the need for external members who really understand higher education.
Like its history, its values, its complexities.
All of that. They want people who can provide guidance and strategic insights.
Almost like wise elders.
Yeah, someone who's been there, done that, and can help navigate this changing landscape.
Someone who can connect tradition and innovation.
Exactly. And another rector from a traditional university talked about the need for external members who can help build bridges with the business world.
Especially in areas like research and technology transfer.
Right. They see the value in connecting with the private sector.
But they want to do it in a way that aligns with the university's values.
Absolutely. It's all about finding the right balance.
So it's not just about embracing the business model wholesale.
Nope. It's more nuanced than that.
Okay, that's interesting. So traditional universities want that balance between the academic world and the business world.
Right. Now, what about those specialized universities?
Oh, yeah, those institutions that are laser focused on specific fields.
Exactly. Like medicine, engineering, technology.
And we talked about securing funding being a top priority for them.
Mm-hmm.
Did they specifically look for people with like a background in fundraising or venture capital?
Well, the report doesn't get into that level of detail,
Okay.
but it does emphasize the importance of having external members who understand the financial realities.
Of running a specialized institution.
Exactly. One that often requires significant investment.
In research infrastructure and technology,
Right. So they need people who can help them secure funding.
but also advise them on how to manage it strategically.
Yep. Make sure those funds are being used effectively.
It's like having a financial guru on board.
Kind of.
Mhm.
Someone who can help them build a sustainable model.
That makes a lot of sense.
So that's the external side of things.
Right. And of course, we can't forget about those internal council members.
Oh, yeah. The folks from within the university.
And their selections were pretty telling.
Yeah, they revealed a lot about the internal dynamics of each university type.
Like how traditional universities really valued experience and credibility.
Right. They wanted seasoned players.
While specialized universities favored folks with strong management skills.
Yep. They needed someone who could run a tight ship.
And for the PUZs, knowledge of the institution and practical experience were key.
Exactly. They needed someone who understood the specific needs of that university and its community.
So each type had its own set of priorities.
Absolutely. But there's one finding that really stood out to me.
What's that?
Across the board, rectors weren't really looking for internal council members who might challenge their authority.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It seems like they wanted people who would generally support their leadership and decisions.
Not necessarily rock the boat.
Exactly. And that raises some questions.
Right. Like, could this preference for a supportive internal council hinder the potential for diverse perspectives?
That's a good question. On one hand, you could argue that having a supportive council allows the rector to implement their vision more efficiently.
Yeah, no pushback, no delays.
Exactly. But on the other hand,
There's always another hand.
right, you could argue that without a healthy dose of internal debate
The university might miss out on valuable insights,
and alternative perspectives,
which could lead to a less adaptable institution.
it's a tough balance.
It is. You need a team that can work together, but you also need to make sure you're not creating an echo chamber.
Right, and this tension between efficiency and diversity of thought.
It's something that university leaders will need to think carefully about.
As these reforms continue to play out.
Definitely. So it's not just about internal dynamics either.
Oh yeah, this is all happening within a larger context.
A global one.
Exactly. We're seeing this trend of higher education systems becoming more centralized,
Mm.
more managerial.
Driven by pressure from governments and businesses.
They want universities to be more accountable, more efficient.
And more aligned with the needs of the economy.
Right. Almost like they're being asked to operate more like businesses.
Which makes sense in some ways, but also raises concerns.
Yeah, are we losing sight of the core values of higher education?
Things like academic freedom, critical thinking, the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake.
That's the big question, isn't it?
It is. And it's not just a Polish question.
It's something universities all over the world are grappling with.
So Poland's experience offers some valuable food for thought.
Absolutely. Now, speaking of those rectors,
Right, let's get back to their perspectives.
we talked about their motivations, the
Yeah.
pressures they face.
But the report also digs into how they view their role in this changing landscape.
And what they see for the future.
So what did they have to say?
Well, their responses were really interesting. A mix of pragmatism and idealism.
Okay.
Many of them acknowledge that universities need to become more entrepreneurial.
Find new sources of funding, build partnerships.
Exactly. But they also emphasize the importance of academic integrity.
Protecting intellectual freedom.
Right. They don't want to lose sight of what makes a university a university.
So it's about finding that sweet spot.
Yep. Adapting to the changing world while staying true to those core values.
Which requires a new kind of leadership.
Absolutely. Someone who can balance all of these competing demands.
And it sounds like these rectors are up for the challenge.
They're not shying away from the complexities.
They're embracing them.
And finding ways to lead with both pragmatism and purpose.
Which is really inspiring to see.
It is. And that's what makes this deep dive so fascinating.
It's not just about data and structures.
It's about the people.
Their hopes, their fears, their aspirations.
And how they're shaping the future of higher education.
It really is. It's like we're getting a glimpse into the hearts and minds of these leaders as they navigate this uncharted territory. But this isn't just a Polish story, right? I mean, are there lessons here that other countries can learn from?
Oh, absolutely. I think Poland's experience offers a really valuable window into a much broader trend.
A global one.
Exactly. Lots of countries are wrestling with these same questions about how to modernize their universities.
Make them more efficient, more responsive.
Right. And also how to balance these external pressures with the need to protect academic freedom.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. So yeah, there are definitely lessons here for other nations to think about.
So what are some of those key takeaways that stand out to you?
Well, I think one of the biggest ones is the importance of context.
Right, like understanding the unique circumstances of each country's higher education system.
Exactly. Poland's reforms were shaped by its history, its culture, its political landscape.
It's not about finding a one-size-fits-all solution.
Nope. What works in Poland might not work somewhere else.
So other countries need to do their own homework.
Yeah, figure out what makes sense for their specific situation.
Okay, that makes sense. What else?
Another crucial takeaway is communication.
Like making sure everyone is on the same page.
Exactly. In Poland, there was a lot of discussion, a lot of debate leading up to these reforms.
So it wasn't just imposed from the top down.
Right. University leaders, faculty, students, government officials, they were all involved.
Sounds like that helped to build buy-in.
It definitely did. And it gave everyone a chance to voice their concerns.
To be heard.
Exactly. And I think that's something other countries should really pay attention to.
Because reforming higher education is a big deal.
It is. It can be really contentious.
So it's important to create space for those conversations.
Absolutely. To listen to different viewpoints, to build consensus.
It's about working together, not against each other.
Exactly. Now, another takeaway that I think is really important is the evolving role of the rector.
The university president.
Right. As universities face more complex challenges, their job is becoming even more demanding.
They need to wear a lot of different hats.
They do. They need to be strategic leaders, skilled managers, effective communicators.
They need to understand the academic world and the external world.
Exactly. And they need to be able to balance all of those competing demands.
It's a tall order.
It is. But the rectors in this report, they seem to be rising to the occasion.
They're not shying away from the tough stuff.
Nope. They're embracing the complexity and finding ways to lead with both pragmatism and passion.
Which is really what it's all about, right?
Absolutely. And that's what makes this deep dive so inspiring. It's not just about structures and policy.
It's about people.
Yeah, and their unwavering commitment to the power of education.
Well said. I think this has been a truly fascinating exploration.
I mean,
We've learned so much about higher education reform in Poland.
and about the broader trends shaping universities around the world.
We've heard from the rectors themselves.
Gained valuable insights.
And hopefully sparked some important conversations.
That's what we hope for.
So to our listeners out there, thank you for joining us on this deep dive.
So we appreciate you being here.
Keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning.
We'll see you next time.